Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of art to help you attract more customers, increase profits, and ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and this week's episode features the social media famous international muralist, Kiptoe. I knew this guy had a lot of Instagram followers, 265,000 to be exact, and even more YouTube fans, over 700,000, and a lot of experience under his belt. But what I did not know about Kiptoe is, first, his hustle game is crazy strong, and second, how he got it all started traveling all over the world independently in his 20s, building his brand. He is a great example of an artist who took the time to get really good at what he does, then pitched himself and continues to keep pitching himself still today to customers in order to get the mural jobs that he wants with his unique style. This dude, he needs no further introduction, so let's just get to it. I know you're going to feel inspired by this week's episode with Kiptoe. So how did you get your start in this art world? You do some amazing giant murals, and I want to know how this came to be.
Well, I've been an artist my whole life, and I've always been drawing and creating and making videos growing up as a kid. And I went to illustration school. I got my bachelor's in illustration, and I always wanted to know. I knew I always wanted to do something with art, but I never really knew exactly what that meant, And then after school, I was in touch with one of my professors, and her brother was in charge of the housing development in Providence, Rhode Island, for this town called Olneyville, which is a kind of a lower class, lower wage kind of town. And they were looking to spice up the neighborhood with some murals. And so they kind of hooked me up with them, and they were looking for a wall. I was looking for a wall to paint. So that's when I first realized painting walls is not just about the art. It's about all the bureaucracy and everything that goes into getting permission to get this wall and getting everything squared away. It's not just about painting. And I realized that there's so much hoops you have to jump through and permission you got to get and stuff like that. And we were trying to paint this wall in the center of town. There would have been a really badass wall, but we got permission for the wall, but not for the parking lot underneath. There's so many different people you got to get in touch with, and we just couldn't get them to say yes for the lot. So then we couldn't even paint that wall. So then I had to go around town looking for my own wall because I still wanted to do this project. And eventually I found one around the corner from their office, and it was perfect because it was a youth center. My drawing kind of lined up with that, and I finally got the okay, and we got all the scaffolding, and I got all the materials that I thought that I needed. And then I just started painting. We got all the scaffolding up there, and it's kind of the same process that I still use today. I did the big pole there, a giant pencil, and sketched out my work there on the wall and filled in the background and the big shapes with the buff. And then I started spray painting on top. And after 7 days, I finished my first big mural, and I was absolutely hooked. And I was oh, this is the feeling that I've been looking for this whole time in my going through school. I'm just trying to figure out what I actually want to do. And I finally found that feeling of something I can actually sink my teeth into and realize that I can really go balls to the wall and do this for real. And that was just the first step in a long, arduous, tough journey of trying to do it for real. But that was the first step in knowing what I wanted to do.
How long ago was this?
That was in 2013.
Okay. And how big was the project? How big was the wall?
It's probably 30 feet by 30 feet.
Okay. So your first one was 30 foot by 30 foot. Okay. So you've always painted big.
Yeah.
And your method, I was watching some videos on how you have that long stick and you have a roller basically on the end of it to kind of do you chalk it in first, or do you just do it like that?
No, I like to use the roller as a big pencil, and sometimes I'll have a loose grid, I'll cut the wall into quarters or something, or I'll use windows or doors or whatever as guidelines. I like to use my whole body and just feel out the wall as I'm going, so I know kind of where things are at. I usually have a pretty rendered sketch ready to go, and I'll just work off of that a printout, and I'll be using the big roller on the end of the stick as a giant pencil, and that way I can feel out where things are on the wall and get a sense of the scale as I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone as I'm painting the outlines,
Wow. Okay. I use a projector and I like map it all out because it's tough to see things when it's that big, but you
Yeah.
have a really long pencil and you do. I've never heard of that. So I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, it's just kind of like how I started, and it's kind of just like how I kept going. I like it. It's like I like using my whole body and just getting feel for the wall. I hate using projectors. I don't like trying to figure out how to set it up at nighttime and everything's dark and you can't see shit. And then like you got to find outlets and extension cords and get the thing up there. Like I tried it once and I was like, this is not for me. I'd rather just do it bright and early in the morning and then like halfway through I already got my sketch up there, and then I can just keep going. I'm already in the zone. I can just keep filling in the background, and then it's just like my preferred method, and it works for me.
Yeah. How did you figure that out? Did you see someone doing it or were you just like, this seems like a good idea?
Yeah, I think I was copying like Aries or something from Spain.
Okay.
He's like the mastermind. He's like the top dog. I'm always trying to learn from those guys. So like Aries and ETAM crew from Poland, those guys were like big influences on me.
I'm gonna
Stuff
have
that
to
they
check
do.
them out. Okay. That sounds exhausting too, using your whole body. It's quite, I mean, muraling in general is a pretty big workout, but I think you're taking it to the next level. And you do spray paint mostly?
Yeah, like
Well,
I said, I'll try and fill in like the big shapes with like Home Depot exterior paint, and then yeah, I'll go on top with the spray paint and add all the details. I like to call it like sculpting because you're basically like sculpting from the darks to the lights, and I work from the dark tones and to the middle, and then to like the final highlights at the ends where you add all the lights, and usually I'll save white for the very last.
what brand of spray paint are you using? And is it oil based or?
These days, I really like Cobra paint. There's so many different kinds. I did 94 for a long time, but I kind of switched over to Cobra. I really like the color palette and the viscosity, and it comes out really buttery. The last two big murals I did Cobra. It's really nice.
How are you pricing these big mural projects? So when you get it and somebody's like, I have a 30 by 30 foot, how are you getting a price range on that?
I'm not the best person to ask because I can kind of fluctuate, but sometimes I'll do it by square foot, but that doesn't necessarily work all the time for me. Sometimes I'll just do it by project and by feel, kind of like what I've done in the past, and kind of depending on the scale and scope and style of the project, I'll kind of fluctuate up or down. But I started charging super low, like when I first started out, just to get work under my belt. And I was doing a lot of work for free, and all my personal murals that I put up around town, I would just paint for free. And I just trying to get walls to make art and make videos and get my work out there. And set like I wanted had to have like a personality to my art and not just be painting for clients all the time. And I wanted to have enough of a voice where the right type of clients would come to me instead of trying to chase down other shit that I didn't want to paint. So I kind of had a vision for what I wanted to do, and from the beginning, and I tried really hard to stick to that. And eventually, the clients did start coming in. Whether they watched my YouTube channel or they saw me on Instagram or just saw my work on the street. Yeah, I started really low, and then I would do this thing where I would kind of figure out, okay, well, like I did this garage for like $4,000, and there's like another project that is kind of similar in scope and size. So I kind of tell the client, like, okay, well, last time we did a project like this, it was 5,500, but it was actually 4,000. But like, I'll give you a deal because I like you, and we'll do this for like 5,000 or whatever. So you're actually telling them that they're getting a deal, but in the end, you're actually bumping up your price at the same time. So there's kind of like some different negotiating strategies you can work with, and then I started getting bigger and bigger projects up to like 10 grand, and then the big ones I would have to like really apply for and work really hard to like win the bid. There's like these big projects where these cities send out RFQs, which is requests for qualifications, and you send in your work, and then they'll pick like a top 3 or top 5 finalists, and then those people draw their concept art, and then they have to pitch it to win the bid, and like it's a whole process. And that's what happened last October for my biggest budget mural ever. Did this big giant skate park in Oklahoma, and I'm like, I have a lot of people who know me as like the mural guy. So sometimes they'll just send me these RFQs that they see, And that'll be kind of how I find out about these, with people just send them to me, be like, hey, you should apply to this. So, I applied with my work in the initial RFQ and I got in the top 5. And then I spent like a week drawing out my concept art for the skate park and worked really hard on the concept art because I knew like I really wanted to win this, because they actually set the budget themselves and it was like 40 something thousand dollars for this wall, which was like the biggest budget I'd ever seen for a mural. So I worked really hard to make sure that I won, because I knew I really wanted this job. Got my concept art really fleshed out, and then I did the Zoom call and like all the different artists were presenting back to back on one Zoom call, and like trying to pitch our work and try and like win the job and explain our experience and what the concept art means, and including all these different details that I had in there. And I nailed my presentation, and a couple weeks later, I got the call that I won the job, and I went over to Oklahoma a few months later and spent about 12 days painting this wall. It was like 160 feet long by like 18 feet high, and it was awesome. It was a great time, and the locals treated me super well, and I got to do a bunch of cool stuff, and I got to go on a plane ride where they took me up in a stunt plane, and I went upside down and did a bunch of barrel rolls and loops, and even pulled my own backflip in the plane, and got to meet a bunch of cool skaters and get to meet some of the locals, and they treated me super well, and it's like one of my favorite things.
I love that. And I think this is a really good example for, we have a lot of artists who watch who are just getting into the mural game and they're just kind of just trying to figure it out. But I think the process of applying and showing your work is not necessarily a beginner type thing. It's more of a, once you have something to show for, you can, then provide the backup for all of this. So I think it's just something inspiring for people to look forward to and just to see what's possible out there, because a lot of artists don't even know like where to begin. So you're saying the cities would send these out and they would make like a Facebook post and people would send you the Facebook post?
Yeah, pretty much. They have a whole packet, in a PDF where they explain the project and they give you the wall and the dimensions and what they're looking for and stuff. And yeah, they'll share it on Facebook and social media and stuff, and people will send me the links and be like, hey, you should apply to this.
Nice. Okay. And how many hours do you spend painting per day? Like you said you get out there early in the morning and then you stop at about what time?
Usually I try and start around, 8 or 9, and then I'll go until it's dark. So whenever the sun sets, probably like 7 or 8, so like 12 hours.
And I imagine that you get a lot of requests for things that maybe aren't your style of art. Is that right? Or do you turn those down? Or, because I know I get a lot of like pet forward to people, maybe their pets or just all a bunch of different things. Do you take those on?
I mean, as I get further into my career, I definitely try and like hone in on projects that actually are a good fit instead of just taking anything I can get, because in the beginning you're taking everything you can get because you're hungry and you need work and you need money. But as you develop into a more mature artist with a bigger portfolio and like a more advanced career, you definitely start being a little more choosy with your projects, because there's only so much time and energy in the day you can put towards things. And if I want to work on stuff that I want to work on, stuff that I like, and if I'm working on stuff that I hate, it's just like, why? It's not worth it. And I'd rather pick and choose jobs that I like, that there's sometimes fewer and far between, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So before applying for these, what do you say, RFQs? Before applying to those, how were you getting work? So I'm thinking of like the artist who's in more of the beginner stages, like how to recommend to them. How would you recommend them to get work?
And I can only speak from personal experience, but what I was doing was just going around town and painting walls for free, and then building up a strong portfolio of really, really, really good work. You have to have good work. You have to be self-aware enough to know if your work is good enough to even get clients. You have to have, one of my pet peeves is people who want to jump right into murals before the artwork is even good enough. The reason I won the bid for the big Oklahoma skate park mural was because my drawing was good. My drawing was so good, was way ahead of everyone else's, because my drawing in the first place was good. And then the mural is just the executing part of it all. You have to have good art first, and then you can try and figure out how to paint walls afterwards. And just building a strong portfolio, and then you can be proactive. And when I was at home before I moved to California, I would have a brochure with my work on it and my information. I would go around town to every single business, knock on their door face to face and say, hey, I'm an artist in town and I'm looking to spice up your walls. If you're looking for some personality in your space, like, I'm your man and we can come up with a cool solution for you. And I got like 3 or 4 walls just going around town knocking on doors with a brochure saying, hey. I remember there was one time I was even like in a beer store where a guy had like custom beer, and I was in line just waiting with my brochure in my hand, waiting to give it to him, the guy in the front. And then I did my little spiel, and then actually the guy in line behind me, he had like a 6-pack in his hand, and he was in behind me, and he heard my spiel, and he was like, hey, actually, I have a restaurant that I'd like to have some work done in. Would you like to come over and check it out? So I got work just from the guy overhearing me behind me. So there's definitely ways that you can get out there and get yourself known. You just have to be proactive about it. And like, yeah, social media is a solution, but it's just so oversaturated that social media has become more about entertainment than about getting your work out there. So I feel like even just showing your face and knocking on doors is still a really great approach. So
Yeah, I totally agree. That's exactly how I got started here locally. You'd see a blank wall and I'd be like, hi, I'm a local artist. Can we do this? You mentioned you had a flyer. What did you have on that flyer? Did you have photos, or I'm trying to create a visual?
Yeah, it was like I had my name at the top with a couple different photos of my work, whether it be canvases or walls on the front. And on the back, it was just like a spiel about who I am and like my information with my phone number, my email, my website, and my Instagram. Yeah, definitely a lot of photos so they can see your skills.
Yeah, for sure. Have you had anything crazy, funny, or any kind of mural stories that have come up when did you spill things everywhere, or any kind of crazy stories that have happened while you were muraling?
I could talk for 3 hours about stories I have. I don't know. I can tell you a not so cool one that I had when I was in Peru. I had done like a big South America tour in 2016 where I went all by myself and I was finding walls and meeting up with local artists and did like a whole travel series on my YouTube in South America. And I got really addicted to it. So I went back again, and I went to go see a girl I met in Colombia, and we had a little, vacation adventure. And then after that, I went to Peru, but I was getting a little cocky and I didn't really have any contacts like lined up for murals or walls or anything like that. So I kind of just went in blind, and it kind of cost me a little bit because I was like struggling to find anywhere to go to paint walls. And I ended up painting little stupid things at the skate park, and I was kind of getting frustrated. And I was like, well, I did it all by myself at home. I can do it all by myself here. I barely spoke any Spanish, but I was still knocking on every door I could find, with the same kind of method, just saying, hey, can I paint your wall, with like a printout of the translation in Spanish so I could like memorize it before I walked in, And I was having no luck. And I ended up finding this spot. I was going around town everywhere, and I ended up finding this blank wall. And I was like, well, it doesn't seem like, anyone's in here. I'm just going to paint it and see what happens. I didn't even ask permission. And I went around town, and it's like really hard to find the right kind of paint over there. And I was going from this corner of the city to get spray paint, and then all the way over to this corner of the city to get some buff to fill in the background and stuff. I got all my spray paint. I had my backpack with all my camera equipment and everything. And I was like in a clouded state of judgment. And I was really trying to rush and just get everything done myself, like a stupid gringo. And I was just like really struggling to just figure out what I needed to get. And we went all the way to this spot at the other end of the city called a Maestro, which is like a Home Depot. So I could get a bucket paint of like orange paint to fill in the background. And in like this clouded state of judgment, and like I was just so gung-ho on painting that I couldn't think about anything else clearly. And I was in the back of the taxi, and we pull up to the store. I had all my equipment in there and all the spray paint I just bought. And he says, you go into the store, you grab your paint. I'll wait for you outside, and then we can go to the wall. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. So I got out of the taxi and left all this stuff that I bought, all my camera equipment, my backpack, everything in the taxi like a dumbass. And then I went to the store, And sure enough, by the time I got back out, he was like long gone. So I was just standing there outside in the middle of Peru with a bucket of paint and nothing else, feeling like a dumbass. And I was
Oh
like,
my
man,
gosh.
what an idiot. So I had to learn some stuff the hard way. I still ended up painting a wall. I met up with another guy and he like took me to a spot and I still painted after that. But then I went home and I was like, I need to recuperate a little bit after this stupid incident. But
I might have cried. I would have done the same thing because I'm such a trusting. I'm from Missouri, so I like everybody here just waves at each other. Everybody's super nice, and like I leave stuff everywhere. And so I would have done the exact same thing. I'd be, oh,
yeah,
thank you, and come back out like, dang
yeah.
it.
My passport was still in my room, so at least I could go home.
Yeah, yeah. So how long were you down in Peru?
It was like a week or so. I spent like 6 weeks in South America before that, just traveling around. I went to Bogota, Buenos Aires, and Rio de Janeiro. I was painting like 2 or 3 walls in each place, meeting up with local artists and traveling and having the time of my life.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun time. Yeah, I can relate kind of. Anytime we travel to like Thailand or Iceland or whatever, I'll go around and I'll knock out some doors and like, hey, anybody want a mural? I'll do the kind of the same thing. Is that how you did it? Were you making connections while you were there and like teaming up with other artists, or were you like mostly knocking on doors?
No, when I was traveling, just meet up with locals and they would just show me around. Like they would bring me to all the spots. Each time I went to a new place, I made a connection for the next place I was going to. So kind of like snowballed and just kind of started meeting a bunch of really awesome people.
That's awesome. What year did you do this?
It's 2016.
Man.
There's a video of every single wall that I did on my YouTube channel. If you go down, there's a whole travel series of all this stuff. So everything I'm talking about is on YouTube. So
Okay. So everybody go check it out on YouTube. You're going to see some visuals. Is that how you got your YouTube and social media stuff growing? Is through this traveling fun time?
yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I started really taking it serious when I moved to LA and I did a bunch of murals in LA, like personal ones for free that I would flex and do my personal murals. And I was like really gung ho about just traveling and becoming international and painting outside of the US. And I don't know why, but I just chose South America and I started to really take my YouTube even more seriously. And I didn't have barely any subscribers back then. I would make all these travel videos and I would come home and get like 300 views or something. But I was just so confident and so clear about what I wanted. I just made the videos like I already had thousands and thousands of views, even though nobody was really watching and knew who I was. But it just kind of like took it in a direction that I knew I wanted to go and kept going. And now those videos are like, they got tons and hundreds of thousands of views on those just because I've been up for a while and I created a name for myself after that. So
Yeah, I think that comes from too, like knowing you have quality and leading with quality. I think it makes it a little bit easier to go out and pitch yourself when you know you have a good product, which goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, like practice your craft. Your videos, I was looking through your Instagram reels. Do you edit those yourself? Do you do all that?
yeah, I do everything myself.
Editing is a process. It takes a while, so that's a lot.
Yeah, I spend more time editing than I do making art.
Yeah, I believe it. Man, okay. Dang, that's just such a cool thing. Okay, where all have you gone? Where all have you created murals? So a lot of South America, but like the different countries.
Yeah, I did Bogota, Buenos Aires, Rio de Janeiro, Peru, Medellin. And then in 2018, I went to Europe. So I did Grenoble, France, Paris, France, Madrid, Spain, Barcelona, Spain. I went to Berlin, Germany, and I went to Finland, and I went to London, and then I went to Lebanon. And then after that, I went to Mexico as well. Since then, I've also been doing a bunch of big walls around the US.
Very cool. Yeah. And I think you're a lot of artists who will listen to this are going to be like, you're living the dream. Like that is the thing. But I just want to commend you on your hustle. Like just going out there, like meeting other artists, knocking on doors, and you made it happen for yourself. And I think a lot of artists, we kind of hope and wish, and they're like, maybe someone's going to ask me to do a mural in Mexico one day. But no, it's getting out there and making those connections. And I know as well, like when you're over there, it's a lot easier to get something done when you're over there in person rather as sending like a pitch through an email. Have you ever done that? Have you ever pitched before you've gotten there?
I mean, mostly when I'm traveling, it was for the experience. I'm not like getting
Yeah.
paid for
Uh,
these big while I'm traveling all over the world. Like I'm doing it because I loved it and I was making videos, and sometimes I would like make money from the videos and stuff, but I was doing it because I was young and hungry and wanted to just do what I wanted to do. And I didn't really give a shit about whether I was getting paid or not. And then like sometimes I'll have a huge commission mural that will pay for all that other stuff that I was doing for free. So it kind of like balances out, and you kind of gotta pick your battles. But as I get older, I'm 30 now, so I did all that stuff when I was 25 to 30. So I was young and free and wild and just didn't care. But now I'm a little more of an adult, so I have to be a little more strategic about the things that I do, and I'm trying to figure out how to make more money, and I'm trying to be a little smarter with my approach instead of just going buck wild and free. It's all like a growth period, and you're always kind of readjusting and reevaluating. And I'm like super thankful for everything that I've done and all the adventures I've been on. I have like stories for days and days and days about all the cool things I've done. But now maybe I'm in a different point in my life where I have to figure out how to be a little more strategic and smart about the things that I do.
Yeah, I totally understand. But I feel like what you did, even though you were going buck wild and you're doing fun things, you built your brand, and that's worth so much. And you had fun while you were building your brand. So I mean, it's just all of those things that make it easier to now apply for big murals. And it just your name is a bit more out there, so it just makes it easier nowadays. But
yeah, and like I said, I was like building a huge portfolio for myself and a huge body of work, and also like building up my YouTube channel, and that all kind of trickles into, like you said, like building a brand and building a name for yourself, getting people like aware of who you are and what you do, and people see stuff or they see opportunities. Like I said, sometimes people will just send me stuff because they know good at what I do, and they'll know that I'll do a good job, and I'll apply for it and do my best and win these big gigs. Like last year, I had a bunch of gigs that I still have to apply for. They're not like just handing me work, I still have to apply and work hard, but I'm built up a big enough portfolio and I've mastered my craft enough where I know that I can probably win these gigs because I know that I can do it. So also about like believing in yourself and knowing what you're capable of and putting your all into everything. So
yeah, definitely. And I think too, this just helps to, put it into perspective for artists who, they look at artists like you who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers and all of the things, because you've spent the last almost 10 years acquiring those and, making quality things. But a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh, they've got it easy now, but no, you still have to try and you still have to do those things. And I totally understand with the whole responsibilities thing here recently, because I spent a lot of time traveling doing murals as well. And now it's kind of nice to sleep in your own bed at night too, and like work from home and like do some local stuff. So
you got a baby on the way, right?
Yeah, I do it in November. Yeah. Do you have kids, married or?
No, no, just me.
Yeah. Still just doing the adult thing still. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how things change from your early 20s to your early 30s. But so I totally get it. Yep. So that's really all I had today. Have any last information or any last bits of advice for aspiring artists who are just starting out? We are welcome to that. And or any last little bits of stories that you have. But yeah, that's all I had for today. Thanks.
I'll just regurgitate something that my mom likes to tell me, where she's kind of says something along the lines of just be you and be the best version of you, because everyone else is already taken and no one else has what you have to offer. So just don't be afraid to be the best version of you and put your full self out there, because people will respond to the real you. And when you're authentic and true to your own voice and your passions, then it really shines through with the people watching and the people listening. And people are passionate about passionate people, and passion always shines through no matter what. And people are magnetized to that. So just find out what you're really passionate about and make sure you're putting your own voice into it, because no one else can do it like you. Yeah,
you're definitely taking those words to heart. I can tell through your style. You have a very very unique style, and you're doing it. And a lot of artists, not many artists have the same style that you have specifically, and you're leading with that. And so I think that's a great example for what she's meaning and what you're doing for other artists coming in. But yeah, we could do a whole podcast episode over everything that you just said. So just the value of being unique. But yeah, thank you again so much for coming on. It's great to connect with you. And
thank you so much, Angel.
Yeah, keep in touch on Instagram, and we'll talk to art later.
Ciao.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Artist Academy podcast. And if you like hearing interviews just like this in your ear, if they inspire you, then I want to encourage you to go download the Audible version of my new book, Mural Money. It's a condensed version of basically all of the best tips given here on the podcast from guests, plus my own words of wisdom to help you get started in any art industry, plus stories of some hard lessons learned that I have never told before. You can pick up a copy at muralmoney.com. And again, I highly recommend the Audible version. I put a lot of tender love and care to make sure the Audible was extra special. It had some extra goodness in there. And it's really for any artist, but especially those wanting to make a profit from a paintbrush. Muralmoney.com. That's it. I'll see you next week.